NASCAR's new rules package probably had its biggest victory of the year yesterday at Texas Motor Speedway. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. I'm super exhausted. If you can't tell already, my voice is practically fried. Because if you haven't kept up with this channel, I was at the races here at Texas Motor Speedway Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was filming a vlog the whole time. I'm gonna have several videos up later this week that I think are gonna be amazing. Arguably the best content I've ever put out on this channel, so I hope you guys are excited for that. But yeah, so I was at the races in person this weekend, so maybe I'll have a slightly different view of things compared to some of you guys when I talk about the race here in a minute. But first I wanna give a big shout out to NASCAR Pole Position Magazine. They're the ones that helped set up this Texas Motor Speedway experience for me, helped get me some amazing behind the scenes access, allowed me to get up close with a lot of drivers, cars, all throughout the weekend, so a huge shout out to them. The people at NASCAR Pole Position are incredible. The content is amazing. They have an online version of the magazine. You can order a copy for yourself. They also run Roar, which is a purely digital NASCAR magazine, which I usually have a cameo appearance in, so yeah, check them out. Follow NASCAR Pole Position on Twitter at NPPMag and tell them that I sent you, because they are awesome people and I can't wait to share these videos with you the next few days. It's gonna be amazing. If you already follow my Twitter or Instagram, which by the way, links to those are down in the description, you already probably have a good idea about some of the amazing things I got to do this weekend, so can't wait to share them with you guys. Anyway, let's get on with the episode because we have to talk Texas Motor Speedway. This is a track that since they repaved it after 2016 has probably been one of the least favorite tracks among NASCAR fans. Most fans don't like repaves, especially not when it's a repave of 1.5 miles, and especially not when Texas also decided to reconfigure turns 1 and 2, taking away banking, which typically isn't a great decision. Ever since they did that, 2017 races weren't that good. 2018, the spring race was kind of chaotic, but neither race was really that good. But today, or yesterday, 2019's O'Reilly Auto Parts 500, I think we finally saw some improvement out of the track. We actually saw some signs of life out of this 1.5 miles in North Texas. Now again, I want to reiterate, I watched most of this race from pit road, so I was kind of seeing the front stretch. They had the huge big loss, big screen on the back stretch, so I was able to watch a lot of the TV broadcasts. I was able to watch a lot of the battles throughout the race, and so I think I have an okay idea of how this package looked, but yeah, again, I just want to preface it with that. I want to start this episode by talking a little bit about the Aero package, then I'll talk about the top finishers, and then of course the Groovy Gauge at the end, so stay tuned for that. But as far as the Aero package is concerned, how did it look at Texas? It looked actually pretty good. I think this is kind of what NASCAR wanted this new Aero package to look like at most 1.5 miles. Cars were really drafting and staying together for 20, 30 laps of a run. And most notably, the race leader really could never get away from the pack. Like, even if they had the best car, they could maybe pull a second away. I think at one point Kyle Busch was able to get 2 seconds away, and then later towards the end, with the way pit strategy cycled out, Hamlin had a 2-second lead. But other than those two parts of the race, 80-90% of this race, the leader was never more than a second ahead. And we even had a couple passes for the lead under green. From my vantage point, it still looked like it was hard to pass, but I think that's mainly because Texas is a repave and still more or less was kind of a one-groove racetrack. You could make that second middle lane work a little bit at times, but you kind of had to get lucky and hope the other guy screwed up if you're really going to make that work. A little outside the top 5 and mid-pack was where a lot of the action, a lot of the passing happened. We saw 3 wide consistently on restarts, 4 wide occasionally, even down the front stretch. It was insane. But unlike at Las Vegas or Atlanta, where the restarts are really the only exciting part, Texas still kept us with some pretty good racing throughout, the earlier middle parts of a run. Now, I think the reason the Aero package was more successful at Texas than, say, Atlanta or maybe even Las Vegas really is because Texas has that newer, fresher, paved surface. The fact that tires really didn't fall off that much during a run really meant that drivers could be almost fully wide open for most of a fuel run. Atlanta, tires wore off so quickly that drivers needed to start lifting and needed to start working on handling really early in the run. But at Texas, drivers still had to work on handling, of course, but because of that freshly paved surface, because of the grip it had, especially if you stayed on that bottom lane, drivers could stay pretty much wide open most of a green flag run, it looked like. As we saw, tire fall off really was never a big issue. It was a track position race, which I'm not always a fan of, although it did lead to some very interesting pit strategy. I'll talk about that at the end. I thought the ending of this race, the way it played out with different fuel strategies and whatnot, I thought that was really interesting to follow. But Texas was still a track position race, which is what it's been ever since the repave, which is what I think a lot of 1.5 miles are going to become with this Aero package, as long as this current Aero package is the norm. You can pass pretty well with this package, but it's still hard to get up through the field, because it's very easy for your momentum to be slowed down, for another driver to make a move on you while you're trying to pass another guy and kind of put you in a squirrely situation. It's easy to get screwed up and get woed up with this package, so it's hard to drive through the field. We saw a few guys, especially in this race, work their way up. Kyle Busch started, started outside the top 12, kind of worked his way through the field, got up in the top 5. That was interesting. Denny Hamlin with multiple penalties, which I'll talk about in a minute, also was able to kind of drive through the field a little bit to some extent. So there was some of that, but there wasn't a lot. But I don't know if that's so much the package, as much as it is just the way Texas is these days. But it is some of the package, because we've seen a little bit of this at Atlanta and Las Vegas. That being said, at the end of the day, Texas Motor Speedway, this race yesterday was a great improvement over pretty much anything I saw there in 2017 or 2018. So NASCAR, this is probably their biggest victory of the season as far as this new rules package is concerned. After Atlanta, people were like, it didn't really change racing that much. After Las Vegas, they were like, maybe it made it better, I don't know. After Auto Club, I think a lot of people were like, this package doesn't do anything. But after Texas, I think hopefully a lot of fans now realize that this is what the package was supposed to do. And at the very least, it did help Texas, which was maybe one of the worst tracks in the NASCAR schedule. So it made a usually terrible Texas race the last couple of years pretty good. Looked like fan response to this race was largely positive. So, cool. Can we get some more people in the stands for this race next year? Because, yeah, that place looked like it was maybe 50% full from where I was sitting. That's still 50 or 60,000 fans. But, can we add some people to the stands next year, guys? The one bonus to uploading this on a Monday is we already know what the TV ratings were for this race. Adam Stern reported that the TV ratings for yesterday's O'Reilly 500 was a 2.3, which is up from last year. It was a 1.7. However, last year's race was on FS1 versus this year's race on Fox, so you really can't compare the two. One thing I did think was interesting is that this race at 2.3 was only down 0.2 from this same race 2 years ago, which is also on Fox. That was a 2.5, so that's a decrease still from 2017 to 2019, but compared to some of these other races where we've seen huge decreases from 2017 to 2019, that one's not too bad. So it sounds like a decent amount of people were interested to see how this package would work at Texas. So I think that's still a solid ratings weekend for racing. I know some of you guys might want me to talk about the qualifying debacle on Friday. I really don't have anything new to say there. I was able to watch it. I was on pit road watching it. So it was fun for me to see all the cars line up and then just shoot off all at once. Like, that was really cool to be there in person. I understand on TV that probably wasn't that exciting. That being said, I didn't see all the things that made a lot of people mad about qualifying. Apparently some drivers were like hogging the middle lane, and that was supposed to be illegal, screwed up some guys' lap times. So at the end of the day, my thoughts on this whole qualifying procedure haven't changed from a couple weeks ago. I'd like for NASCAR to keep a form of group qualifying in order, just because I do prefer group qualifying to single car qualifying. Especially the last few years, group qualifying has been great in my opinion. But with this Aero package, if they have to go back to single car qualifying, maybe they should. I still think it might be fun to try some heat races one week just to see what happens. Maybe try a group qualifying format where you send like 4 or 5 cars out at a time and have them work together for a couple laps, and then just do that with different groups. It's like almost like a combination of group and single car qualifying if they do it like that. That's what I want. I'd like for NASCAR to keep looking at different options, because I'll be honest, I don't really want to go straight back to single car qualifying. Because with this Aero package, single car qualifying is not going to be that great either. Drivers are just going to be flat out, and it's going to look like Daytona single car qualifying, which is the worst form of single car qualifying in NASCAR history. Everyone's going to just end up being a fraction of a second apart, and nobody's going to know where they gained or lost time, because they're just like, I was wide open. Hey, what else do you want me to do? At least with group qualifying, you have drafting, which adds another element to the driver's job. People keep saying that these cars are too easy to drive by themselves, so why do we want to go back to single car qualifying? Wouldn't that be boring? If these cars are so easy to drive by themselves, like, what's there to watch? Just drivers doing this for an hour? You guys are going to watch that? Because I'm not. At least with group qualifying, you do have drafting, which, can force drivers to change their lines, can force drivers to kind of make quick decisions to get the best lap. There is an added element of drama and intrigue there. I know that group qualifying, what we've seen the last couple mile-and-a-half races, I know it's, at the end of the day, it's not going to work. They have to change that form of group qualifying, but I'd like to keep several drivers on track at the same time. I'd like to keep that, which is why the idea of maybe dividing them into like 8 groups of 5 and having each group of 5 go out for a couple laps at a time and draft together as a form of qualifying, I think that might be a way to go. That's something that NASCAR should look at. But anyway, I know a lot of you guys probably have very different opinions. With this package, single car qualifying is going to be so boring. It just will. I'll move on from that. Let's talk about some of the top finishers in this race, because I haven't even mentioned the winner yet. Here's your top 20 finishing results. Denny Hamlin gets the win, his 2nd win of the season, which is quite the turnaround from a winless 2018. Denny Hamlin still looking for that first career championship. Not gonna jump too far ahead of myself here, but hey, he's off to a pretty good start. I mentioned the finish of this race earlier. The finish of this race was very intriguing to me. You had Erik Jones leading with less than 30 laps to go, but because of where he was on tire strategy, Jones ended up taking 2 tires on his final green flag pit stop, and I was listening to his radio. They said that they were going to need a couple extra seconds of fuel anyway, so that's why they did the 2 tires. And as a result, Denny Hamlin and Clint Bowyer and Daniel Suarez were able to leapfrog him, and Hamlin was able to win the race because of their fuel strategy. The way it worked out, they only needed a gas and go. So I thought that was fun to see how it worked out, because up until the last 10 laps, we really didn't know how it was going to shuffle out, how it was going to work out. But Denny Hamlin getting the win, his first win at Texas in like a decade. Good for Denny Hamlin, continues the trend of Joe Gibbs versus Team Penske. Now Penske had a pretty crappy day at Texas, but Joe Gibbs, they were good, they were strong. They had all 3 of their cars leading at different points in this race. Joe Gibbs Racing now 4 wins this year, Penske's got the other 3. We're still waiting to see if Stewart-Haas can jump up, maybe Hendrick. Hendrick showed some signs of life this week, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Maybe they'll finally show up, Ganassi, but right now it's a Joe Gibbs Racing world, and Team Penske is trying not to fall too far behind. Now it is worth mentioning that Hamlin had to come back from 2 different penalties in this race. Speeding on pit road at one point, uncontrolled tire at another point, so the fact that he was able to come back from that in a race that didn't have that many cautions, crew chief, for one, with all the tire strategy and everything, deserves a lot of credit. And then Denny Hamlin as well, driving through the field, keeping his nose clean. Impressive. You know, they put themselves in a hole, but they dug themselves out in the best way possible. Clint Bowyer and Daniel Suarez both get top 3 finishes. Great look for Stewart-Haas Racing here. Shows that they're not too far behind the Gibbs boys. And also great for both of these drivers, because up to this point, I feel like Kevin Harvick and Aric Almirola have kind of been carrying the banner for Stewart-Haas Racing. To see Bowyer and Suarez, especially Daniel Suarez, have maybe his best race of his career. Probably second best to Pocono last year, but a great performance from Daniel Suarez, and both of those guys, big confidence booster to them. Makes me think that maybe Stewart-Haas Racing is pretty even. There's maybe no one guy there that's just head and shoulders above everyone else the way Harvick was last year. Erik Jones 4th, great recovery as well. He spun out like on lap 5 or something like that. Kept the nose clean, kept the car clean. They were kind of behind. They were a lap down at one point in this race, but managed to work their way back in. And again, in a race with very few cautions. The fact that they were able to work their way back into this thing and even had themselves in a position to win late in this race. Big shout out to Erik Jones. Good to see after a couple kind of not so great weekends. Let's talk about Hendrick Motorsports. Jimmie Johnson and William Byron with a couple of top 6 finishes. Jimmie Johnson started on pole for this race. William Byron, Chase Elliott were also starting in the top 3. After Friday, this looked like Hendrick Motorsports' week. Jimmie Johnson even led for most of this first stage. He actually led more laps in this race than he did all of last season. Can you believe that? Now, after Jimmie Johnson lost the lead, he started to fade. He was outside the top 10 at one point, and I was like, oh gosh, here we go again. They just can't get the race trim right. But at the end of the day, they did come back and managed to score a top 5 finish. So Jimmie Johnson and that team, this was their best and most complete performance of the season by far. William Byron too as well. William Byron in his second year struggled last year heavily. This year really hasn't been much better, but a 6th place finish at Texas Motor Speedway and another good qualifying effort. Really impressive. This was Hendrick Motorsports' best weekend of the season. Now, Alex Bowman sucked most of this weekend. I wasn't watching the race on TV, so I don't know if he had a problem or anything, but yeah, Alex Bowman was irrelevant all weekend long. But other than him, even Chase Elliott there finishing 13th, he ran better than that for a lot of this race. He was up there challenging for the lead. Even he made a pass for the lead at one point in this race. So Hendrick Motorsports, lot to build on from this weekend's race. See, I can say good things about Hendrick Motorsports. I'm not a Hendrick hater. When they do good things, I'll point it out. The problem is they just haven't done that many good things lately, so I'm not a hater, y'all. I can say good things. Almirola and Harvick, Stewart-Haas Racing still looking good, just not quite where Gibbs is. Another top 10 for Almirola, though. That dude's been so consistent this year. Kurt Busch, another top 10. Continuing to carry the banner for Chip Ganassi Racing. I thought this would be Kyle Larson's year. A year of resurgence for Kyle Larson. He's looked no good at all. Larson's not looked good at all. Outside of Atlanta, Larson's looked terrible. He wrecked in this race. Larson's looked terrible outside of Atlanta, but Kurt Busch, the veteran, continues to just plug in top 10 after top 5 after top 10 every single race this year. Last weekend, he had an off race. He had an off weekend at Martinsville, finished 12th. Another top 10 for Kurt Busch. Yeah, I am super impressed with what he and that one car have been able to do this year. So shout out to him. Kyle Busch managed to still get a top 10, was not able to sweep the weekend. He won the truck race, won the Xfinity race, but he wasn't able to win the Cup race, despite being in a possible position to do so pretty late in this thing. He had a big wiggle at one point and lost the lead to Erik Jones, and then I think it was a few laps later, he actually hit the wall a little bit, and that's what forced an unscheduled pit stop, I believe. So that's what kind of put him behind. Still recovered for a top 10. Good, damage control, I guess, but kind of disappointing, I'm sure, for Kyle Busch. I'll keep going here. Decent day for Roush, couple top 15s. Truex, kind of lagging behind the other Gibbs cars, but not a horrible performance. And there you can see the top Penske finisher, Joey Logano, in 17th. Yeah, they had a lot of issues. Brad Keselowski had a mechanical issue of some point. I actually don't remember what it was. They said something. I saw him parked in his stall for like most of the first half of this race, and then he went to the garage. I didn't actually find out what it was. Ryan Blaney, while leading, actually blew an engine. So I guess if Penske can hang their hat on anything this weekend, it's at least that they were leading at one point when they blew an engine. Probably a race weekend that Penske wants to forget. So there you have it. Those are your top 20 finishing results. I know this is a long episode, but I got the groovy gauge, the last final thing. How did this race at Texas Motor Speedway stack up to other races we've seen this year? 5 of the first 6 races this year I have viewed as mostly positive races. Auto Club was the only one that was kind of not that great, but so far the season's had pretty decent racing. Texas Motor Speedway, I'm happy to say, I think continues that. On the groovy gauge, Texas Motor Speedway, the O'Reilly 500, from me, will get a 70%. I already explained a little bit about why I thought the race was good, but really you had a lot of different leaders, which was really cool. A lot of people led for a little bit of time here and there. You had a couple battles for lead, a couple passes. Fuel strategy and pit strategy came into play, and that's ultimately what decided this race. You had some spins, but no like huge wrecks. Didn't tear up any like sheet metal. Had drama. Had a leader. The leader of the race blow an engine at one point. So this race had a little bit of everything. For a Texas race, especially recently, this would get an 80 or a 90 from me. But as far as just general mile and a half or general NASCAR races go, I'm going to give it a solid 70%. I was thoroughly entertained, and I'm glad a lot of other people were, because I was down on pit road, didn't have the best view of the racing. I got cool views and stuff, but not necessarily of the overall racing around the track. So it was good to go back and see that a lot of fans thought the racing was good, and that all the replays I saw looked like the racing was pretty good as well, especially by Texas standards. So I'll give it a 70%. Yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Where would you give this race on the groovy gauge? Anyway, you guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Those links are down in the description. You can also get yourself an Out of the Groove t-shirt if you want to support me, represent the show. You can do that as well down there. Also, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. Shout out to Michael Harrison at GWiz of the Stars, SelfishGifts.com, Mentally Defective Cameron James, John Koblenz, Tim Shingen, Jason Arlong, Wesley Donaldson, Isaac Dennison, Mika Suzuki, iFantasyRace.com, Adam Lean, and the rest of these amazing supporters. It's thanks to these amazing people I'm able to do great, awesome things like go to Texas Motor Speedway all weekend and film it for you guys. It's thanks to the support I get from you guys. I hope to continue to go to more races in the near future, film them, and just kind of document racing across the country for you guys, and I really appreciate you guys helping make that a possibility. Again, I'll have a bunch of videos up this week. Probably the first one will be tomorrow. I have videos from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to post this week. You're not going to want to miss them. Got a lot of drivers up close and personal, a lot of cool behind the scenes looks. If you're interested, if you ever have like, hot passes or garage access to a NASCAR race weekend, hopefully this will help kind of prepare you for what the experience is like. It was awesome. It was maybe the best weekend ever. I had a ton of fun. I'm exhausted right now though, so I'm gonna wrap this video up before I just doze off on camera. And I gotta get to editing. So thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate the support from all of you guys for all this time. And great things continue to be just around the corner. I keep saying that, but great things keep coming up. Like, there's still more great things ahead for this channel. The Texas Motor Speedway was awesome, but there's still more great things. So I appreciate the support, you guys. I hope you guys are along for the journey with me. See you guys again very, very soon.